Thank you, everyone, for staying with us on the program this morning. We appreciate it. Let's get the discussion on the road quickly. I'm joined by three brilliant gentlemen to help us beat context and then find perspectives for this very timely conversation on TMI this Thursday. From my immediate left, I have Felix Osareme, is a lecturer at the Department of International Studies and Diplomacy here at the University of Benin. Thank you, Felix, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Viewers at home, good morning.
Reverend Olu Martins is also joining us this morning. He's a public affairs commentator, and he's here to help us make sense of this conversation as well. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And next to him is former chairman, Nigerian Bar Association, Benin Branch, Barrister Ede Asenoguan. Thank you as well. The only lawyer, the only learned man in our midst this morning. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you very much.
Second time around this week, Barrister Ede, that you're on our program. That's a privilege we don't take for granted. But first, I want to begin with you. We've talked about security concerns on this program quite a number of times. But now, some people say, look, there is a curve. There's a whole new dimension to this issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Some persons have talked about sponsorship, blah, 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 blah. But I want us to talk about how that there is a historical perspective to how we got to where we are today, because they say there's no smoke without fire, even though some persons now argue that with technology you can have smoke, with fire nowhere.
Well, the issue of security in Nigeria has attained a very, very worrisome dimension. I agree. We didn't just get here overnight. We have done things that has, of necessity, brought us to where we are now. For instance, for us, some of us Nigerians, it didn't make sense that Boko Haram or members of Boko Haram, we say they have been born again, and then the only thing the government can do is to train them, send them abroad, give them money, and some others are conscripted into the Nigerian army. Oh, they have been trained by Boko Haram. The best place they can now go and carry out their training is inside the military. Clearly, the military has been infiltrated by our deliberate effort of the government. Beyond that, they have always been treated with kid gloves. They commit atrocities. Nothing tangible happens to them by way of consequences and punishments. They get away with it. They abduct school children. They are encouraged by the payment of ransom. You negotiate with them, and they say, oh, we have negotiated the release of these children. Thereafter, there is no punishment, there is no arrest, there is no investigation. And what do you expect? They continue to grow. Now, for every action of these criminals, whether you call them bandits, herdsmen, Boko Haram, what other name? Unknown gunmen, they are all criminals. Their activities are criminal in nature. And the consequences of every crime ought to be punishment. Now, these things happen, they go unattended to. They continue, every action they do is a message, not only to the government, but to the people. On the surface, my brother, if I ask you, where is the safest place to be in this country? The first place that will come to your mind is Aso Rock. Aso Rock has been infiltrated, and we heard of robbery by unknown gunmen.
But they said that was some streets away from Aso Rock Villa, not within the villa.
Oh, you are talking of the villa, but inside Aso Rock. Even if they can, let us even not say now, is a street close to Aso Rock or close to the villa. What does it tell us? There is a message that is being sent by those that are involved. They have taken it a step further. Where is the next safest place? Oh, our military installations. They have been infiltrated and abused. The message they are sending to us Nigerians and to the government, even if they decide not to listen, is that there is nowhere that is safe in this country. We can get you whenever, wherever, and however we want it. And the government is quiet. This is the same government that will tell you as innocent civilians that you are not entitled to carry arms to defend yourself. They have told us that Nigerians who have licensed arms should submit them. And those who do not have licensed arms, they say they are carrying it for their security. And they are not even carrying the regular double-barrel guns that you give license for. They are carrying AK-47s and other more sophisticated weapons. And the government is quiet. So the message is very simple. That look, in Nigeria, we have lost it, security-wise, completely. If the place where our military personnel are being trained can be attacked, not just attacked, persons abducted. Not only that, some of them killed, and they just walked away like that. My brother, is it your house that is safe? That is the message. That is the message. So I was listening to somebody on channels. Was it yesterday or yesterday?
That was Conle Olawomi, a retired Navy commander.
Nigeria has been taken back 60 years. I used to say 30 years. But that's a military person who said 60 years backwards. My summation is that there was a very grave mistake we made in this country in 1914. A century later, 2015, we made an even worse mistake, which has now taken us back 60 years. I'm
going to get back to you again in a bit, Eddie, but let me talk to Martins quickly. Some people say the attack on Nigeria's foremost military institution, the NDA, people say is the military university. All right, it's a strong message being sent by these bandits or by whatever nomenclature that, look, let's weaken this country institutionally in such a way that their capacity and competence to even retaliate is further weakened by the day. Is government listening at all?
I'm a man of words by proclivity. I listened again on my way here to the discussion yesterday on the sister station of yours.
Right.
And I'm not too sure how to describe my feelings, whether I'm scared, trepidation. I don't know, because it looks like these are deliberate actions. It doesn't look like you throw, like you play Ludo or Monopoly, you throw a dice, and then if you get 6 and 3, you're not sure whether you can get 6 and 3. It doesn't look like that. It looks like people are acting a script. So when you say government is listening, if government is orchestrating, if the government is the one that has the script, to say that government is listening it means that government is perhaps in the background and then somebody is playing out these things and government needs to act. It looks like government is the one that is acting. They look like they are the dramatics personnel. Do not forget that in this country, a few months ago, it was said, we heard a statement of a Nigerian minister, the Minister of Communication, where he said, in particular, expressed very years back, I suspect that it is one of the persons that the retired Commodore was talking about, expressed very deep sentiments for terrorists. And he has found his way in the government. Ecclesiastes.
So his apology doesn't hold water now, does it?
I mean, let me give you an illustration. You have somebody who is violated your daughter or son, and then he apologizes and says, look, I didn't know the implications of what I'm doing. Maybe he's a house help. What do? You have listened to the apology, but what do? You keep that person far away so that tendency there's no opportunity for him to repeat it at all. You'll be stupid in spite of the person's apology. For instance, for those who believe in polygamy, or even not polygamy, even if it's monogamy, you found traces of poison in your blood. And they said, it is the food that they have been serving you from your domicile. In other words, your wife is a suspect. And then she comes and confesses. You must be an idiot to continue to eat food. And you are forgiving her. Madam, I confess, I forgive you. But from today onward, I will either cook my meals
or eat out.
I will eat out. But that I'm going to eat your food because you are, even if you cry. My question is, how did it enter into your mind? Why did you even conceive the fact that you want to poison me? So I'm not going to take that risk. So, in spite of his apology, and I dare say that if such a person can find himself in the corridors of power, the Bible says, deep calleth unto deep, and the sounds of the water sprouts. It means there must be colleagues like him. How do I know barristers? If I want to measure barrister's character, I don't need to speak with him. I will sit down and look at the people that he constantly surrounds himself with. It gives me an idea of the kind of person that he is. So, if I look at the cabinet of Mr. President, and I can point to certain persons who have expressed their sentiments, or who have the capacity to carry out certain things, and they don't do it, and then the commander-in-chief does not fire them, he doesn't query them, he does nothing to them, it gives me an idea that there is high-level complicity on the side of the president or the presidency. So saying that the presidency is not listen, I had my younger sister come back from the UK some years back, and she felt that she's the only person that at that time UK had opened their doors to travel there. She became very cocky and nobody could talk to her. So she spoke to me roughly one day, and then my father was upstairs, and when I wanted to, like we say, enter her in worry times, she was protected. So I took off and I went to where I live. On Sunday I came a few days later when nobody suspected. And before they could protect her,
you entered her.
Thank you, sir. My father was also reading newspaper. He didn't, in his house there was commotion. You want to kill her? He didn't bat an eyelid. You know why? He wanted to enter that girl because the girl don't enter her rudely too. So for him is the fact that, look, I need somebody to enter this girl.
To teach her a lesson.
To teach her a lesson. So he just sat back. Would you say that my father wasn't listening? He was listening, but he just wouldn't act. That's why you can't win a sleeping competition with the dead. And like Comrade Aseko used to tell us, it's difficult to wake up a man pretending to be asleep. He decides when he wants to wake up. So in this particular instance, the president and the presidency, they are pretending to be asleep. And like my father did, they know, but they want somebody, what they are doing pleases them. So they are just relaxing and say, you know what, let it...
Okay, I'm going to let you catch up very quickly. Let me talk to Felix now, right? The president has reacted just yesterday to say, look, this nasty occurrence will not discourage the military. But then again, most of the Nigerians I've spoken to between yesterday afternoon and this morning are not buying that, at least not wholesale. But let me talk to you about some of the very weighty allegations that retired Commander Kunle Olawumi made. First, he said that he has been to virtually all the military formations across this country, including the NDA. He says on Fridays, especially around 1 to 2 p.m., you see the gates are flung open in the name of people coming to worship at the different mosques within these formations. Even in Lagos, for example, he said this is not done anywhere. That's what you're doing, is you are opening the gates, you're giving access to questionable characters to profile the military, see their weaknesses, see their strengths, do an evaluation of what they can do to further compromise and then, of course, exploit military formation in this country. Some persons have expressed the fear that if we're not careful from the way we're going, at the risk of being the prophet of doom, that Nigeria may as well end up like countries like Yemen, like Afghanistan, that has become talk of town today. Is there any way we can reverse this ugly trajectory that we're dealing with?
Well, the perspective you are coming from is assuming that there is the strong will to address the challenge that is before us.
We don't have that, do we?
No, but it's already clear. My two co-discussors have just established that point. I don't even need to belabor the position they maintained. I'm going to speak straight to the issue. And what's the issue here? We have a government that does not care about the country. we should stop patronizing ourselves. Somewhere along the line, Nigeria has got to this very deep pit we are in today because Nigerians have been played to the gallery. We are self-serving individuals. We are also self-seeking. So when we're in public office, we look at what is beneficial to us. Once it benefits us and is beneficial to our immediate clique, it's okay. If it is not, there is a problem. And the president said, that the fact that the Defense Academy, the elite Defense Academy, where you train officers, that's the point we are looking at. Right. It's not just a ragtag barrack, maybe after Ubeho. It is NDA in Kaduna, in Africa. No, we should be very clear because I have also visited that area before. I visit different parts of the country and we go to military formations. You see, it is the height of insincerity and disregard for national ethos for a city president to be telling you that the attack is because the army and the military and the other armed forces have stepped up their activity against militants, bandits, and terrorists. And that this act will even inspire the military more. So let me turn the argument into what we call street language. Somebody will tell you that someone came to your house and beat up your mother. That will make you now a fighter. When you would have actually first of all blocked the gates,
prevented the person
inside the compound. You allow the person to walk in, walk out. After the person had beaten your mom and go to the street, you now say, wait, if I catch this guy, I'm going to pieces him. You see, our government is an embarrassment. Nigeria as a country is the disgrace of the international system right now. We should stop patronizing our government. If I'm on public television, I'm a public officer, and there are words I shouldn't use, but sometimes it's so painful. Because when you sit down, you ask yourself, where are we going to from it? Because right now, nobody can sleep with his two eyes closed in this country. Let us be sincere. Aso Rock attack last time, the residence of the chief of staff to the president. That's not an area where you see you can just walk in and walk out. If your vehicle breaks in that area, if you are not out of them within minutes, you will not like what the people in the State Department will do to you.
No cars, no motorbikes, no keke.
I'm telling you, no private vehicle goes to that area. If you are even to be found in that area, you must be permitted. Now look at what the retired Navy Commodore Conley mentioned yesterday, which is instructive. You see, this is Nigeria we live in. And in Nigeria, we pretend a lot. It is true. On Fridays, every public institution in this country that has a mosque, people walking. From those who sell cans, those who scavenge things on the road, whether they are motorcycle riders, whether they are house helps, they all go to the mosque. So, as he also rightly mentioned yesterday, because I watched the interview, he said our problem is religious and ethnic. And we are not running away. But that is already a known fact. I have had reason to sit here and explain that. When we say we want to be politically correct by saying it is not Fulani herdsmen, it is herdsmen. Who are the herdsmen in Nigeria? It is the Fulani. So when we are pretending at times, we are not solving a problem. We should be addressing it.
I think at the point that was being made there was to say, look, let's not tie the crimes of a bunch of persons all around an ethnic group.
We pretend this is the result. Because these are the same persons who have been carrying out these acts. The government is also aware. If the government is not aware, how come they are able to say separate the coloration from the act? Then let us go to the critical point today, which is that the Defense Academy has been attacked. 2 officers, a lieutenant and the one in the Navy, they were shot and killed in that process. A major has been abducted. His present condition, of course, half of the story now is that he has been killed. The other half is that ransom negotiations
about 200 million is being demanded
from the military. The military explained to us from the report they gave that the person that were to man the CCTV camera were asleep. If you are not safe in a barrack, you see, this is why it's so embarrassing. They are not giving us any concerted response that maybe there was such an attack that they were overcome because it is a residential area of this institution in Africa, in Kaduna. It was that they were asleep. So those people gained access around 1 a.m. How many motorcycles did they used to come in? You know the sound of motorcycle at night, in the dead of night. It's so loud. So you even if you are sleeping, unless, as Reverend Martin said, a man that is praying to be asleep, you will not be able to wake him up. This people, the government is praying to be asleep. And when the government is in that mode, what can you really do to the government? The government has made up its mind. The government knows those that they favor. And because the government is taking side with certain religious and ethnic groups in this country, this is going to be the result, where you are not sure. And for each act that is carried out, it is also becoming clearer that the government itself is encouraging this impunity. Because when there is no consequence for mischief, what will happen is that crime becomes the norm. And the government itself has now become an aider and abetter of criminality. Because the government has put its foot down and say, enough. We will not allow this. We have not even heard anything concrete. Of course, they are not supposed to tell us point by point how they are tracking those criminals. We agree. But nothing concrete is going to, because there's also interagency rivalry, where every head of every military institution or armed forces does whatever they like. If they don't do whatever they like, then this embarrassment would have, at least the chief of defense staff, Lucky Rabo, should have even left Yola to come back to Kaduna immediately. At least the chief of army staff, who was in Benin as at that time, would have cancelled their engagement at S&T. Of course, it was a national assignment too. But you see, where you are coming from, your home, your base has been violated. Yeah. And you are giving speech from another part of the country. Whatever business you do, you return. Not just that they came in and stole equipment, maybe they stole computers and television and they ran away. They killed 2 officers. Carried out the officer away. Please, we are not talking of ordinary person, we are talking of military men trained with public funds, taxpayers' money. I agree they signed to defend the constitution of the country, the territory with their lives. Even
at the risk of their lives.
Yes, I agree. You see, every human being knows that once you are born, you will die one day. But you must live a worthy life. And you are in the barracks, the safest place you think you can be. Now you cannot even sleep in the barracks.
I want us to talk about something else, but let me turn to Eddie quickly. Last year, Dr. Obadiah Melafia, former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, made weighty allegations again on a live radio interview where he talked about that there is a particular serving governor in this country who is a strong sponsor of Boko Haram, or if you like, bandits. And then that became a problem between him and the DSS, invitations back and forth and so on and so forth. Now, Commander Kunle Olawumi has made similar allegations. How valuable are these revelations, and how much can we do with them to change our conditions security-wise for the better in this country?
What we can do with them on our part is the talk we are talking now. The government has decided not to do anything with such information. That's the problem. It's not that they do not know. Is it not in the public space that even before this president became president, Boko Haram nominated him as their spokesperson, as their ambassador, to go and negotiate with the government of the day on their behalf? Is it not in the public space that before he became president, he said the government, the federal government, should stop killing Boko Haram people and should not be attacking them, that it was an attack on a particular sect? What we are to do, the DSS will come and pick you up when you say, what do they do with that information? The person that was named, was that person arrested? Was the person interrogated? What is the outcome of the investigation or the information? The man made an accusation. If the person that was accused, such weighty accusation, you are sponsoring Boko Haram, you are funding it, and you didn't sue him for defaming your character. The DSS came in, arrested you. You made your statement. Oh, I said those things. They didn't come to tell us that the man has withdrawn that statement, or that the statement he made was unfounded. Everything went under the carpet. The man who was accused was not arrested and interrogated. Does it not show that the government...
But can you really arrest and interrogate the serving governor? I mean, the immunity clause issue.
Oh, immunity clause, beautiful. But you can investigate them.
Right.
And the report of such investigation we await when they are out of office. And of course, the public should know. You don't continue to shield them. You don't. Let us leave governor. What about the minister? What about those that we are bringing in by deliberate policies of government into the military? You are who you are. The rain, the sun will not wash away the spots of a leopard. You have been involved, deeply involved in terrorism. And then you say, oh, I've repented. And they did not put you in a section where you are ordinarily supposed to fight terrorism. And you think you will not have your contacts outside? Now, what happened at the NDA? The military have even said it was an insider job. Who is the insider? Who are these insiders? They are all there. Have we not heard of instances where the army, they will go and they will run into an ambush? They want to go for operations. They run into an ambush. How do these people get this information? They are insiders. These insiders are shielded. They are protected. There is no way we can make any headway. You tell the persons who are protecting those who are carrying out the crime to also be the person to investigate the crime. What result do you expect? See, we are in a big problem. And unless and until, for me, I've lost confidence in this present government to tackle the issue of security in this country. Because every step they make is in the backward direction.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up question. How much of relief or otherwise did you find or did you feel when in April the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation had announced that some 400 persons were already lined up for prosecution as being alleged sponsors of Boko Haram? That the bulk of these persons were Bureau de Change operators who had been sponsoring terror in Nigeria. 4 months down the line, we don't seem to have heard anything much from that end now. Do we say maybe some discrete investigation is still ongoing or something?
All those discrete investigations ought to have been concluded and completed before the Honorable Attorney General came out to say that. I believe that there was now so much pressure, so much talk, and to divert attention, to say that we are doing something, those announcements were made. And it ended there. How long does it take to file and bring persons before the court? I'm not sure it took that long for us to get Nnamdi Kanu to court. So, for me, there is something the government is deliberately not wanting to do. And the only reasonable inference to be drawn from that is that they are shielding these criminals. It's like you have your boys out there. Let me give a very simple example. When we do elections, we have people who are armed, who are sent by the politicians to go and carry out certain activities. And then the police arrest these persons. It is the same people who sent them in the first place, big people, top people in the society, that will come around and make calls and get these people released. That's exactly what is happening at the national level. These boys know that we have our backers. We have our sponsors. We have those who are sympathetic to our cause. They are the persons who pull the strings in government. Whatever we do, noise will be made, but nothing will happen. And for as long as that remains the position, we will continue to suffer what we are suffering now.
I think that's the scary part now, because, I mean, all three of you gentlemen have one way or another made reference to the interview from yesterday by Kunle Olawumi. I remember at the point it was even asked, for example, are you sure after these weighty allegations that you have made that your life is still safe? And he said, look, I don't care about my life. Whether you kill me or not, it doesn't change a thing. The issues will still be there behind me. But Olu Martins, I want to ask you something quickly. There was something he said when he talked about how that, first, we cannot use the same model that we had used, because he said he was a pivot in the arrangements that actually brought about the amnesty program for the Niger Delta militants, those who were in the creek and so on and so forth. He said we can't use that same template for Boko Haram. In other words, the idea of saying we are reintegrating, we're profiling, we're trying to reintegrate these repentant, quote unquote, Boko Haram foot soldiers back into society won't work, because he says, look, we don't have the same circumstances. These two issues are not on the same platform and so on and so forth. But the thing he eventually said that got me paying more attention was when he talked about how that the defense authorities don't even have the latitude to prosecute sponsors, to arrest sponsors. That's their job stops within the, as it were, the brackets of kinetics and operations, reconnaissance, and so on and so forth. And the question now becomes, whose place is it then to say, okay, now that we've identified these sponsors, especially those he said were in government as of today, for example. Some persons have talked about willpower, for instance, but given the realities in front of us right now, it appears we are going to need a little more than willpower to deal with this.
The truth of the matter is that the presidential system of government, especially in a nation like Nigeria that has weak institutions, is a dangerous system of government. The reason is because the presidential system of government, the people who are under the president always have a way of pandering to the whims and caprices of the president. Look at when President Donald Trump was president. He appointed a couple of aides who speak the way he speaks. Look at when President Yar'Adua was in government. As soon as he said that we would observe stricto sensus, the rule of law, everybody began to align. Look at President Goodluck Jonathan. Once people saw that the guy wasn't the combative type, if President Goodluck Jonathan were the combative type, Uhuru Baby would not have needed to do what he did on that day where the results of the elections were being announced. There are people who know that President Goodluck Jonathan is combative. They would have done what would have needed to have been done before it even got to the election time. It is the same thing when you have a president like President Muhammadu Buhari. People look at him and look at, quote unquote, what is called body language, especially in Nigeria. And I stand to be corrected. Thank God the minister is here. That the president of Nigeria is the only president in the world that has so much power available to him that he can use without much checks and balances. I don't want to call it the most powerful president because the president of America is more powerful than him. But the power of the president of America has checks and balances.
Within the US?
Yes, like a Japanese company will say. They make tires. They say, what is speed without control? So what is power without checks and balances? So as far as there are no checks and balances, we're going to have issues. But more importantly, sir, is that human beings are sentimental to two major things. Any war, quote unquote, that is hinged on religion or on land, ethnicity, they are usually uncontrollable. So people say, this is our land, our aboriginal. Till tomorrow there are people who are arguing that they are the owners of America. So, and those, incidentally, those are the two pivots upon which whatever is happening in Nigeria, especially the northern part of Nigeria, is hinged. One, on religion. That's why Lenin said religion is the opium of the people. And what is opium? Opium suspends your normal reasoning. So you see a trailer, for instance, and opium tells you it's a toy car. It has distorted how you reason. Ditto for land. So you see why our Igbo brothers are as passionate as they are. Because as far as they are concerned, this is our land. That's why, was it the mandators that sang that time? Who owns the land? And those are the two issues. Unfortunately, we have a government who is designing a script. And I must commend the Commodore. He's perhaps one of the boldest men that I have seen in recent time. And the good thing is that now that he has let it, because I'm not sure that anybody has been as exact as that Commodore has been. Watch, in days and weeks to come, there will be more people who will do like the statement that Dino Melaye has popularized. If you talk, you die. If you don't talk, you will still die. At any rate, what is the point? Like the 2 lepers or 4 lepers said in the Bible. If we go into the city, we will die. If we stay here, we will die. But the chances are that if we go in, they may have mercy upon us. The Nigeria that we're living in today, what is the point? Like Malga here said, in patronizing government. Are we really living in Nigeria the way we are living? We're not living in Nigeria. If you know the queue of people, my brother-in-law is planning, is doing things to get out of this country. If you know the queues in our embassy, people get 5 a.m. They're ready to leave. These people are selling whatever they can sell. It is in these things that are happening now. Look at what is happening now. And then a foreigner, an investor, will look at what is happening and hear the explanations of government and then he will bring his billions of dollars. Those who are here are liquidating, and they are finding their way. How many South African companies have left this country? As at 5 years ago, 800 companies, including the very popular Dunlop and Michelin, left the country for Ghana. Now we are told that there are a few countries that Ghanaians can travel to without
visa.
Without visa, and we delude ourselves and sit here. We made a mistake, but I don't like to regret. I told one of my friends once, and this time perhaps I was talking prophetically, that I'm afraid that this president may be the last president of United Nigeria. Because look at the things that are happening today. Look at what the Commodore said. You can imagine, are you sure that this, I mean, whether you call it the presidency or these guys, this cabal, will be ready to relinquish power to the South? There's already a dress rehearsal. I hope that we don't get close to 2023. And then the crisis is so precipitated that somebody thinks that it is now time to introduce martial law, because it may be under the circumstances impossible to conduct the election without casual. I hope this is not a precursor, but my greatest anger, sir, is the fact that those who hold the reins of power in what we call southern Nigeria, and perhaps by extension, those who hold the reins of power in terms of Christian leadership. You will hear such heavy pronouncements by somebody who has made it clear that this is a north-south, seemingly north-south dichotomy thing, and that it is seemingly a Christian, Muslim. It was unambiguous evidence. You would have thought that the Christian Association of Nigeria, the PFM, and then some other, religious who, I mean, not for the Christian dichotomy, but for the fact to say this country belongs to all of us. You would have thought that governors on this side of the divide will be more forthright. Instead, we will make statements that will make life more difficult for our own southern, people. We're not as deliberate, we're not as passionate, we're not as involved in a design for a master plan. The way the Northerners and especially the Muslim North is the way we ought to be in Southern Nigeria. Therein lies the dilemma for me. As we begin
to wrap up now, Felix, I want to talk to you about this whole new vista. I mean, for want of better words, of military institutions and formations being attacked. It's a whole new vista because it has never been this bad, as many persons have attested to, right? But let's look at countries where there has been so much of compromise within the frame of the defense, for example. How does it usually pan out? Because this doesn't look like a walk in the park for Nigeria as a country, does it?
Well, that of the NDA, the security breach we are seeing, is not new.
Okay.
It is only a bit new in the northwest. In Nigeria, we have had situations where, because of the peculiar situation in the northeast, where we have Boko Haram insurgency going on, there is this attack that is frequent on military camps. In fact, they call it super camps. Where you mass military formations, tanks, artillery, men, and other materials, you put them in a huge expanse, so that if they need to move to contain any attack in any sector, it will be possible. Such places have been attacked constantly by Boko Haram. We have seen video clips at times even of the insurgents as they are attacking the military. They are doing live streaming. So it's not new in Nigeria. It is not what we are not used to. What we are getting used to now is that they go into military barracks in seemingly sane areas. That is why that of Afaka is a bit interesting. But interestingly too, earlier this year, the Commander Staff College in Jaji, cattles were rustled from the compound. Commander Staff College is even a higher institution than NDA. Cattle that they have in their compound, which they keep for use of for their consumption, were stolen. Please begin to understand that these are things that are not happening as we think are accidents. They are not accidents. They are deliberate acts, and we already have enough information clearly stated, even yesterday by the retired Navy Commodore Kunle, and before now. We are Nigerians. We know that yes, there is the tendency of the current administration to be tolerant of the Muslims in this country. We cannot run away from that fact. We are Nigeria. That's why I said when we sit in public television, we should stop patronizing government. We should be speaking truth. And if the trajectory has continued, if we are not taking a cue from what is going on in Nigeria, we say, okay, let us look at what's going on in Afghanistan. What's happening in Afghanistan is also a pointer to what can happen in Nigeria. How did it happen? As at the time Barack Obama was president of the United States of America, they started doing this de-radicalization program. Yeah. They said, oh, those people that were caught in the Taliban net that America had been able to secure to their side, okay, we will recruit them into the Afghan army. Many of them were trained at the expense of American government, were armed. Today, many of them are key leaders in Taliban that just took over again in Afghanistan after 20 years. Let us also take a bit of a joke. Reno Mokri said Nigeria is laughing at the US that they spent 20 years in Afghanistan, that they drove out Taliban and replaced with Taliban. That at least it's unstable that is not just America in Afghanistan. So it's not within their country. But in Nigeria, he said Nigeria, we spent 30 years to replace Buhari with Buhari. That Buhari left in 1985 and he's back in 2015. So it's 30 years round. And that we have not learned anything from his antecedent before, even when he was in the military. It is not me that is saying this. Let us go and review the speech that was given when Buhari was removed from government as a military head of state. Those things they accused him of, the complacence, the tolerance, the intolerance of any opinion that is not from his own type, his ability to sleep on weighty national issues, the fact that he voted against his own country for a Nigerian who is Fulani against a Nigerian. These are issues. It's happening in our lifetime. I'm not quoting out of the textbook. It is there. It is in the open domain. So even if you ask me tomorrow, I'll say, okay, I will bring up my sources because I'm an academic, so I can defend whatever I'm saying. If we have gone through all this, we have come to where in Nigeria of 2021, someone will be telling you, as Professor Zulum, governor of Borno State, is even saying that, oh, those who repent from Boko Haram should be accepted. When we are doing integration of radicals, it's a very difficult process because the mind has already been formed. They have an objective. They want to destroy society as it is presently constructed. How you could not tell enough to destroy that society? Interestingly too, you find that Islamic radicalism is different from peace as propounded by Christianity. They are not the same. Their own is not to tolerate you. Their own is to overrun and destroy. So when you start with such people, you say, okay, you want to de-radicalize them. You bring them back to society. It's not by giving them arms and ammunition. You're supposed to give them hoe and cutlass. Go and farm. That land that you drove people from, go and be tilling the land. That from there, you start becoming normal again. And these are persons that the government will instead pamper. Government, let me clear this point because this is very critical. That's why we are missing the argument. Our government is deliberately creating two societies. We are expecting those who have been law-abiding, who have been faithful to the codes,
patriotic,
who have been patriotic, who have been nationalistic. They are the victims. Those who are perpetrating crimes against the state and the society are being celebrated and encouraged. So that's a pointer. It's a clear recipe for disaster in the future. If Nigeria is on the brink of precipice, that was what Navy Commodore Kunle mentioned. They said Nigeria is descending down the precipice already. We are not just staring down the abyss now. We are not looking into the pit. We are descending. And when we are descending, it is because we have deliberately consulted. A government is in place that is not interested in taking the country back from the brink. Instead, the government is consulted in such a way, and we have high officers of state deliberately pushing an agenda. And at that point, the conspiracy theory therefore becomes real. It is not an accusation.
And we hope we're able to reverse all of this because when Commander Kunle Olawumi mentioned that, by his own estimation, we've gone 60 years backwards. That was a bit scary.